What if I told you that the secret to becoming your most powerful self isn't found in speaking louder, but in learning when to stay completely silent? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about strength. Carl Jung said something that revolutionized psychology forever: your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. And today, I want to show you why silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate expression of inner power. But here's what most people get wrong about silence, and it's costing them their peace, their purpose, and their potential. Let me tell you something that took me years to understand, something Carl Jung discovered through decades of studying the human psyche. Silence is not the absence of strength, it is the evidence of it. In a world that glorifies noise, applause, and constant validation, the one who learns to be silent is often the one who's already won half the battle. According to Carl Jung, there exists what he called the collective unconscious, a shared pool of human experiences and instincts. But here's the fascinating part: to access your individual power, you must separate yourself from this collective noise. You must learn to be silent. And if you think staying silent makes you weak, wait until you hear what happened when Jesus stood before his accusers. You don't have to raise your voice to prove your point. You don't need to fight every battle or answer every critic. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing and keep moving. Carl Jung discovered that when we constantly react to external stimuli, we're operating from what he called the persona, the mask we wear for society. But true strength comes from the self, your authentic core that doesn't need validation. But there's a specific type of silence that Carl Jung identified as dangerous, and most people fall into this trap without realizing it. There's a quietness that comes when your confidence no longer depends on the opinions of others. When you know who you are, you stop needing to be seen. You stop needing to explain yourself, defend yourself, or seek applause. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, separate from society's expectations. You're not staying silent because you're afraid. You're staying silent because your focus is too precious to be wasted on noise. And make no mistake, not all battles are worth fighting. Not every voice deserves a response. Some arguments are just traps set to pull you away from your assignment. Here's the psychological truth Carl Jung uncovered that will shock you about why strong people rarely argue. Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But the evolved person, the one who has done the inner work, doesn't need to engage with every irritation. They understand that other people's chaos is often a reflection of their inner turmoil, not yours. There was a time I used to believe that silence made me appear weak. I thought that if I didn't speak up, if I didn't correct every misunderstanding, that somehow I was giving away my power. But Carl Jung discovered something profound: it takes more psychological strength to hold your peace than it does to fight with fools. And what Carl Jung found about people who shout the loudest will make you never want to raise your voice in anger again. The strong don't need to speak to be heard. Their life becomes the message. Their work, their progress, their peace, it speaks for them. According to Carl Jung, this is what he called authentic power, power that doesn't need to announce itself because it emanates from a centered, integrated self. When Jesus stood before his accusers, he didn't argue. He didn't scream. He didn't justify himself. He stood in silence because he knew the truth didn't need to be shouted. That silence was not weakness, it was power under control. That silence wasn't retreat, it was authority. But Carl Jung made a discovery about silence that most motivational speakers won't tell you, and it's the key to unlocking your true potential. Carl Jung discovered that in silence, we access what he called the transcendent function, the bridge between our conscious and unconscious minds. This is where real transformation happens. Not in the noise of the world, but in the quiet depths of self-reflection. In your life, there will be times when you are misunderstood, misjudged, underestimated. Let them. Your silence in those moments isn't silence at all, it's a statement that you are grounded, anchored, and unmoved. The people who shout the loudest often are the ones looking for something they don't yet have. Validation, relevance, worth. According to Carl Jung, there's a specific reason why trees grow so tall in silence, and it holds the secret to your success. But when you know you're walking in purpose, you don't chase after acknowledgement. You let your consistency do the talking. You let your results make the noise. The tree doesn't need to explain how tall it's growing, it just keeps reaching. And one day, the same people who ignored the seed will have no choice but to notice the fruit. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And becoming requires silence. It requires separation from the collective voice telling you who you should be. Here's what Carl Jung discovered about the enemy's greatest weapon against your success, and it's not what you think. Staying silent isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about mastering your spirit. You've got to get to a place where your peace cannot be stolen just because someone else is having a bad day. Carl Jung called this psychological integration, when your inner state is no longer dependent on external circumstances. When the enemy can't destroy you, he'll try to distract you. He'll send confusion, offense, pointless debates, anything to pull you out of alignment. But when you stay silent, when you hold your focus, when you refuse to play the game, you win every time. But Carl Jung made a shocking discovery about growth that happens in silence, and most people miss their greatest opportunities because of this. There is a kind of growth that only happens in silence. Away from the noise, away from the crowd, away from the pressure to perform. Carl Jung discovered what he called the night sea journey, a period of isolation and introspection that precedes every major breakthrough. We live in a world that convinces us we need to always be seen to matter, always be heard to be relevant. But according to Carl Jung, there is a deeper work that happens in the unseen places of your life. That's where transformation begins, not on the stage, not in the spotlight, but in the quiet corners of your soul. And what Carl Jung found about seasons of loneliness will completely change how you view your current struggles. Some of the most powerful seasons of your life will feel lonely. Not because you're unloved, but because you're being separated. And separation isn't rejection, it's preparation. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But sometimes, you need to separate from others to meet yourself. Growth requires stillness, requires discipline, and yes, sometimes it requires you to walk alone. Think about the seed before it becomes anything, it has to go underground, hidden, unseen. It has to break in the dark before it can rise in the light." Carl Jung discovered something about people who try to explain their process to everyone, and it's costing them their destiny. People may not understand what you're doing. They might say you've changed. They might think you're being distant, cold, or different. Let them think what they want. You are not here to explain your process, you're here to protect it. According to Carl Jung, when you're building something real within yourself, you don't have time to be everywhere and please everyone. You're not available to distractions. This is what he called holding the tension of opposites, staying committed to your growth while the world tries to pull you back to comfort. Here's what Carl Jung said about the people who aren't meant to walk with you, and why recognizing this will save your destiny. Not everybody is meant to walk with you in this season. Some people were only assigned to your past, not your future. Carl Jung discovered that we often try to drag people into our evolution who aren't equipped for the journey. And the longer you try to take them where they weren't designed to go, the more delayed your destiny becomes. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And part of accepting yourself is accepting that your growth might make others uncomfortable. That's not your problem to fix." But Carl Jung made a discovery about real power that will make you never seek attention again. Growth is uncomfortable. It will stretch you. It will humble you. It will expose your weaknesses. But don't run from it. Carl Jung called this individuation, the painful but necessary process of becoming whole. And real power doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need attention. It just moves in purpose, speaks in wisdom, and walks in peace. And here's what Carl Jung discovered about your sacred journey that most people are destroying without realizing it. One of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn in life is this: not everyone deserves access to your journey. Carl Jung said, your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. But if you're constantly explaining your vision to people who can't see it, you'll lose clarity yourself. Your purpose is sacred, and it must be guarded like something sacred. The wrong people in the right places will always lead to the wrong outcomes. Just because someone is close doesn't mean they are called to go where you're going. Carl Jung made a shocking discovery about peace that will revolutionize how you approach relationships. When you focus on yourself, you begin to realize something powerful: peace is not something you have to chase, it's something you create within yourself. Carl Jung discovered that everything we need is inside us. We just have to learn to access it. The moment you decide to focus on yourself and not others, you'll notice how much energy you've been wasting on things that have no value. Carl Jung called this withdrawing projections, taking back the power you gave to external things to define your inner state. And what Carl Jung found about stillness will make you never rush your process again. There's something powerful about being still in a world that is constantly moving. Carl Jung said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And those barriers can only be found in stillness. Sometimes progress looks like patience. It looks like waiting. It looks like trusting when the world tells you to panic. In those quiet moments, something deep is happening inside you that doesn't require applause or acknowledgement. Carl Jung's final discovery about silence will stay with you forever. Carl Jung said, the most important question anyone can ask is, what myth am I living? And I want to ask you, are you living the myth that says you need to be loud to be powerful? Or are you ready to embrace the truth that silence is strength? In the stillness, you find your direction. In the silence, you find your power. In the waiting, you find your purpose. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is nothing at all. Focus on yourself. Stay silent. Trust the process. Your breakthrough is coming, and when it arrives, it will speak louder than your defense ever could. The world needs more people who understand the power of silence. Will you be one of them? Stay grounded. Stay focused. Stay silent. And watch what happens. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it.